Hi, folks. Welcome back to Sourced by Cofactr, the show that cuts through the noise and gets to the good parts. I'm Ed Dodd. Great to have you joining. Picture this. You're sitting in a packed stadium for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The energy is electric, the game is tied, and you happen to look up. Hovering silently high above the field is a sleek, high-tech drone. It's streaming a bird's-eye view of the action to millions around the world. Usually, you wouldn't give that sight a second thought. It's capable of maneuvering around the stadium, automatically following the ball or an individual player, providing real-time viewing angles that were never possible before drones. It's just a friendly cameraman. But here's where it gets unsettling. What if that friendly cameraman suddenly became a violent attack robot? Now, instead of using its advanced optics to follow the action, it uses advanced optics to select targets. Maybe it goes into attack mode and crashes into targets. Or maybe it sends someone targeting coordinates. And what if that someone is a foreign adversary? Changes things completely, doesn't it? Now imagine knowing that the manufacturer of that drone was legally mandated by its home country to leave a backdoor open, effectively holding a kill switch over that American stadium. What looked like a friendly cameraman now looks more like a glaring security vulnerability. And that shift in perspective is our subject for today. It's a heavy topic, but a crucial one. We're going to unpack how the US government is quietly engineering a massive, forced revival of the domestic drone manufacturing industry using a radical strategy: artificial obsolescence. The stakes here extend far beyond corporate competition or supply chains. We're talking about the foundation of national security and public safety. This effort is about untangling a decade-long web of global supply chain dependency, one that has left the United States dangerously exposed, and the aggressive, unorthodox legislative tools being used to fix it. To understand what's happening in 2026, we need to look back. There's a clear historical parallel to 1941 and President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Victory Plan. Back then, the mission was to transform America into the arsenal of democracy. The currency of that battlefield was forged steel, iron, and heavy aircraft. The government retooled civilian factories to build bombers and tanks at massive scale. The philosophy wasn't just about designing a superior weapon, it was about overwhelming industrial capacity, producing equipment in such staggering volume that you could outproduce the enemy's ability to destroy it. Fast forward to today. The battlefield has changed. The new currency of conflict is electronics, sensors, and unmanned systems. It's drones. And with that shift comes a new strategy. Instead of relying on massive, decade-long contracts with a handful of defense giants, the focus has shifted to speed and volume. A dynamic network of smaller vendors capable of rapidly scaling production. It's the difference between hand-building a luxury car over months and running an assembly line for autonomous systems. The military doesn't just want one perfect drone. It wants thousands, fast enough to sustain a high-attrition conflict. This reflects a deeper realization. The ability to scale manufacturing is now just as important as the ability to innovate. Because even the most advanced design is useless if you can't produce it at scale when it matters. And for years, the US simply couldn't. So how did we get here? The answer is a decade-long blind spot that allowed a foreign monopoly to simply own the drone market. This wasn't an accident of the free market. It was driven by a 10-year-long coordinated Chinese national strategy, Made in China 2025. That strategy included direct capital investment, low-interest state-backed loans, subsidized land, and massive R&D tax incentives. With those advantages, DJI could sell drones below the cost of their raw materials, a practice known as product dumping. American companies simply couldn't compete with a heavily subsidized DJI. The strategy has been remarkably successful. Chinese companies, particularly DJI, came to control over 90% of the commercial drone market. Astonishingly, this includes over 90% of drones used by government agencies in the US. So why didn't the US act sooner to prevent this? Because of what's known as the dependency trap. It works like this. As DJI sold drones for way less than anyone else could, US manufacturers who tried to compete either went out of business or had to shift their focus to survive. That left China as the only real source. And over a short period of time, media, first responders, and a range of industries had to adopt DJI as the only viable choice. And just like that, we became dependent on DJI. Now the trap was set. Losing access to DJI drones would ground critical infrastructure, emergency response, and public safety operations across the country. Once set, traps like this are hard to get out of. Our trade relationship with China is complicated, and drones aren't the only thing that the US has become dependent on China for. Think printed circuit boards. 50% come from China. Batteries, 70 to 80% from China. Or rare earth minerals, 90% come through China. This deeply intertwined global supply chain means any aggressive move, like tariffs, risks retaliation. So the US was effectively cornered, and everything was aligned to reinforce the status quo. So that's how we got here, the dependency trap. But now the risk calculus changed from economic loss to security threats. The concern isn't just market share anymore, it's national security. Millions of these systems operate over US territory daily, collecting data on infrastructure, traffic patterns, and sensitive locations. If that data is accessible to foreign entities, it's a serious intelligence risk. But even more alarming is the possibility of remote disruption, the so-called kill switch. This vulnerability exists in the drone's core subsystems: batteries, flight controllers, navigation modules, and communications links. And with major global events on the horizon, the 2026 World Cup, America 250, the 2028 LA Olympics, the risk becomes unacceptable. So the government needed a solution, but it couldn't simply ban everything overnight without collapsing domestic operations. The answer was a phased strategic legislative approach. Beginning in 2024, Congress introduced measures through the NDAA, targeting supply chain resilience and restricting key technologies. Executive orders followed, focusing on airspace sovereignty and scaling domestic production. But industry pushback was intense. Many operators relied on affordable foreign systems and couldn't absorb the cost of immediate replacement. So lawmakers devised a workaround. Section 1709 of the NDAA required a formal security determination. If one wasn't made in time, the FCC would automatically add foreign systems to its covered list. And that's exactly what happened. On December 22, 2025, the FCC effectively banned the import and sale of these systems by placing them on the covered list. This created what's called artificial obsolescence. Existing systems still function, but they're frozen. No updates, no parts, no long-term viability. They now have a built-in expiration. This shift fundamentally changes the market. For the first time in years, American manufacturers aren't competing against a subsidized, rapidly evolving foreign competitor. They're building into a vacuum. But there's still a gap. Domestic production won't scale overnight. To bridge it, the government introduced temporary exceptions through vetted systems like the Blue UAS list and Buy America compliant components. These measures keep operations running, but only through the end of 2026, which means the clock is ticking. This is a generational opportunity for the US electronics industry. Just as steel and iron defined the arsenal of democracy in 1941, today's foundation is printed circuit boards and advanced manufacturing processes like surface mount technology. The systems in the sky and the supply chains behind them are being deliberately rebuilt. The precedent is set. And it raises an important question. If this strategy succeeds, could the same approach be applied to other critical industries like medical devices, AI hardware, or microchips? Could artificial obsolescence become a broader tool for reshaping global technology dependencies? Thank you all for joining me on Sourced by Cofactr. I'm Ed Dodd. I hope we cut through some noise and helped you get to the good parts. We're really excited about our new PaaS service model. It's free to try, so check it out today. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe and follow Cofactr as we continue to revolutionize electronic hardware.